Hello, everybody. Welcome to Heart to Heart Conversations. And today I'm so happy we're joined with Dr. Ieleen Taylor, who is a beautiful friend of mine, and yet we haven't still met. Eileen lives in Canada, but through our own interests and passions about and how we work with people, we've actually discovered each other and have lots and lots of beautiful conversations. So I decided that it would be wonderful to have Eileen in today. Plus, Eileen was our guest speaker in our burnout seminar back in November. And so I'll introduce you actually, Eileen, but thank you. Welcome to come in.
Thank you.
And so I will introduce you formally and then we'll get going with our conversation. So, and it's all about grief today. So we're unpacking it a little bit. So Dr. Ieleen Taylor, born in the Fijian Islands, Eileen always wanted to be a scientist since she was 3. She grew up in Canada and is now a very well experienced and loved family physician, clinical preceptor and speaker, and facilitates wellness groups for physicians and health professionals. And Eileen, having traversed her own dark night of the soul, saw many of her colleagues suffering silently. And this drove her to become a champion for physician wellbeing, building genuine community. And her dream is to help transform the culture of medicine together. And you might find, gosh, I can't speak today. You might find Eileen curled up with books and her fairy friends, or wandering in nature, or binging on Netflix, or skiing with her daughters. So welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Eileen is also our guest speaker for the second day of our next seminar, which is coming up, which is Exhausted to Empowered, the Unspoken Issues Faced in Nursing. And our second day is on grief. So I thought it would be really great to have this conversation today. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
So we did have a chat about burnout again and where we were going to go with our second round of workshop. And you weren't so keen to do sorry. You weren't so keen to do burnout. And you said to me, I'd really like to do grief. And that was really inspiring to me too, because it was like, okay, there's lots of unspoken issues in nursing that we don't speak about, not just nursing, but in the health professional health arena. And so grief was what lit you up. And so we decided that actually that was a really good place to start. So can you tell me a little bit about how this all unfolded for you?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I've always felt that our society has never dealt well with grief. Like even as a young person, I remember thinking, why is there so much silence around grief? And that was really modeled to me in my family as well, too. Like we didn't talk about it. We did not talk about it, even when really horrible, sad things happened. And so as a kid, I was left all by myself to really deal with this. And I wondered what was wrong with me. And then, of course, you don't know as a kid what to do. So you just shove it all down and you just carry on your way. And then more griefs happened. And it wasn't until, well into my adult years that it all just piled up. And then I would find myself crying on the way to the hospital, driving. It was a half-hour drive. I'd just be bawling. And then you'd pull into the parking lot, dry your tears, and then you'd have to just pull up your socks and go and see all your patients. And then once that was done, I'd cry all the way back to the clinic and again, dry out my tears and face a huge long day of patients. And you had to really try to be there, but you just ignored your own needs. So I've always known grief is important. And then, and that's why, again, it's just, and I see not necessarily damage, but I see what happens when we don't process grief. And so I thought, well, you know what? It's time to break the silence. It's time to have those conversations. And even though it's uncomfortable. So that's sort of one of the reasons why I really said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Even though it's not popular. There's a little bit of resistance for sure, right? With people when you say, hey, let's talk about grief. They don't really necessarily want to. But once they actually delve into it a little bit, they're like, yes, I'm so glad that we did that because it really helped.
Yeah. When I did my counselling post-grad, that was one of the best topics that I actually did. And it was looking at my own grief and areas that I was not prepared to look at in my own life, but also, how to speak about it with other people. And in the end, it was so valuable to actually have those conversations and understandings about grief. So I think that, there's a whole lot of aspects that we're sort of going to talk about in our seminar. Are you happy to sort of share a little bit about, what we could expect in the seminar, and just, grief, the fact that we don't really talk about it, but we're not going to be diving in too hard, too fast to scare people off either.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really just an introductory process type of thing, just to give people a safe space to actually touch into it, right? I always talk about, we don't dive headlong into these really difficult aspects of our lives. That's not safe. That's not wise. So we dip a pinky toe into it. And that's really what this is a dipping of a pinky toe into the vast ocean of grief. And we do it together in community. We make sure that we set that safe container, and really empower people to notice if they're kind of getting flooded or overwhelmed, or this is just too much to do a timeout. So it's really allowing people that space, but also allowing them the autonomy to say, yeah, no, this is too much. But mostly we try to keep it within, again, that dipping of the pinky toe. So we will, I'll share a little bit about grief and why it's important, what happens if we don't process it, how it shows up in our lives and our relationships. And then there'll be 5 Gates of Grief by Francis Weller. And he really teases out the different types of grief, because grief looks like this big, nebulous kind of amorphous form, and we're just overwhelmed by it. And so giving a little bit of structure to it really helps us to digest it a little bit better. So we'll go through the 5 different gates and then have some interactive, reflective types of exercises. And again, people are welcome to do as little or as much as they want. And I love to throw in some poems and some other types of, exercises that I personally use myself. And then being able to then give people a taste of what it's like, so that they can continue on for future grief work, because it's a process. We're not going to solve all our grief in one fell swoop. So
no. And so it gives us a chance to sort of maybe understand where we might be holding on to some grief that we've never really looked at. There's a lot of what they call it disenfranchised grief, isn't it, in the health arena, and especially after these last few years of working, especially those people who are really on the front line, probably still have a lot to really start unpacking and processing, and we're still going through it really. So once again, we're doing it in a safe way, but opening up the idea that we can have conversations about it and actually have some compassion and feel supported, and that it's okay to have these feelings. We don't need to hide them or deny them.
Absolutely. That validation, like the awareness that we actually hold grief that's been unprocessed and undigested, and then validating it. And also, it reminds me of that quote from Brene Brown: we were hurt in relationships and we will heal in relationships. And so a lot of grief is actually generated in relationship, whether it's, purposeful or not. So we're hurt in relationships. And how do we heal? We heal together. We heal in relationships. And we heal when we can share our stories with one another, when we know that we're not the only one that struggles and suffers and feels this way. And we don't necessarily solve our grief, right? You can't bring back somebody whom you've loved, but you can certainly soothe it and have healing around it.
Yeah, definitely. And, we tend to, and I mean, even me, just thinking now, you start to think grief of someone who you've who's passed on, but really, of course, it could be broken relationships or really anything that we have to let go of. There is a grief, and I know in my body talk, like a holistic practice, it was always about grief is the act. We always have to grieve when something is taken away from us, or something or someone, or and it could be unrealized dreams or anything. There's so much that it's actually included in this. But it's the taking, once the grief process has, gone on a little bit, it's taking the wisdom from it that actually is really, really important too. But then also understanding that for some people, and depending on who was lost in the relationship, and, grief is a continuation in their life, that it doesn't go away. And I know, speaking to some bereaved parents, people tend to not speak about the child, and that's actually really hurtful for them. And they want to be able to remember. And each person's different, of course, too. So it's really about understanding what each person wants, that we're all a bit different and we handle it differently, but not to really necessarily forget them. And I think a lot of the time we worry that if we say something, we're going to remind them. And the parents say to me, it's always on their minds. It's not like I'm reminding them because I bring up, the lost child or the whoever it is, partner or anything like that. It's actually really lovely to name them and speak about them.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm, said as even as a kid, we just don't handle grief well, certainly not in our Western kind of culture and things. We don't. And so then that's what exactly happens is we don't know what to say. So we say nothing and then we avoid them. And that hurts, right? And you're right. There's so many families that are grieving and all they would rather say is, you don't have to have the words. Just the fact that you showed up and asked me, that's all that matters. So yeah, it really is just one of those examples that we don't do well with grief. And so I think we just start to scratch the surface and we have conversations like this and encourage people to, open up and have these difficult conversations, because the fact is it's still there. It's still causing grief. Grief is causing grief. And so we've got to really look at it at some point, right? And you're right. When you talk about, that there are different ways, types of grief. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about in the course. And sometimes we don't even realize the grief that we carry. And so when I break down the different types, people come back, oh, I didn't know that actually was grief. But now that you mention it, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I carry that, right? So it might be things like what we expected and didn't receive. And that definitely has happened a lot in the last 2 years, especially as healthcare workers. We, expected some level of respect and dignity and safety and things, and we did not receive that. So then that really also brings out a lot of other feelings, right? So, but just even, again, validating and naming it is a big step towards the healing of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, as you said before, sometimes, just being able to say, I don't know, what's the best way? What should I say? And I've certainly had people saying to me that just saying that, I don't know what to say, is actually really supportive. I don't know what to say, but I'm actually here for you, or I can support you. And I think sometimes too, just giving us the languaging and how to actually approach the conversations so that we can ask for the help if we need it, or just be aware that, people are in all stages of grief, probably in all various parts of their lives too.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, for example, I have patients that'll come and they'll have cancer, right? And they won't know, they'll say, what happened to my family? Like nobody talks about it. And they're like, and so a lot of it is even explaining the fact that it's not necessarily them that they're rejecting. It's their own sense of not knowing what to do, or even maybe their own sense of mortality, perhaps, right? So then they just tend to avoid that whole topic. Then they avoid my patient, and they feel kind of abandoned, right? But even just having the understanding that, you know what, people, there's so much wrapped up around that whole area. And so we just tend to not even look at it. But you can see the harm that it creates.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've just reminded me of a close girlfriend of mine who said there was well, there's three of us that meet very regularly, and through her own cancer journey, you know, said, I want to be able to speak honestly, and I know that you two are the people that will hold space for me to actually have the truth. And she knew that she couldn't do that in other relationships in different parts of her life, but it was really important for her to speak really honestly about what was going on for her, and you know, and still continues. I mean, she's a survivor now, but still, you know, life continues afterwards. So, you know, all of those things, like you said, there's so many areas in our life when we're holding grief, and it's not really something that we talk about, something that we can get better at. So, yeah.
We can get better at it, right? We can get better at these. And there, yes, of course, it's going to be awkward and we'll stumble and fumble, but think of any skill that we're learning, any skill we are not very skilled at the beginning, right? Like riding a bike, you know, doing any of the procedures that we all do in healthcare. It feels awkward and we make mistakes. But I think it's that openness of being willing to say, yeah, I'm just learning here. Or, you know, oh, I'm so sorry for my misstep. And but I think people pick up that energy and the intention that you're coming in with, wanting to understand, wanting to support, wanting to show that you care. And, you know, if people get that part, they'll help guide our conversations.
Yeah, that's right. So in our seminar, it will be structured and there will be different topics, and we'll be using some of the tools, evidence-based tools, to actually help with the emotions and things like that too. But I love the fact that it is an interactive workshop, that we are going to use some small groups and some shared discussion. And it's not just going to be sort of you lecturing to us as such. It's going to be a lot more interactive and shared, which has been a big help for the participants in your wellness groups, hasn't it, to be able to do it that way?
Yeah, exactly. I think we're inundated with information, you know, and honestly, you can Google everything these days.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily information that we need. We need more that experiential. We need the reflective. We need the interaction. We need that kind of learning. Because if I just stand there and tell you all about the different things of grief, you're just, why did I waste that, 90 minutes there? So it's very important for me to have that interaction amongst each other, because again, I think that that's how we really learn and how we can process this better.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to the seminar. So it's actually on April the 27th and 29th. So both of them are 10 o'clock till 2 p.m. in Melbourne time, which is a couple of hours earlier for WA. So we're partnering again with Eileen Mullery, who's Happy Nurse. But Eileen's actually in Canada. So we've got the US time zones. It's about 7 p.m. there for you now, isn't it, Eileen?
7:30.
Yeah, so it would be an early evening type of seminar for that type of time zone, and probably a tiny bit later. So, and then New Zealand. So really it's hopefully at a really good time where a lot of people can actually be involved and to have these conversations. So day one is the Wednesday, so that would be Tuesday for you. And that is courageous conversations and how to have them. And we've got another guest speaker expert who's going to be sharing her information and helping us with that workshop. And then on the 29th or the 28th in US, or US or Canada, it would be in, sorry, now I'm getting confused. It would be, it is the grief. It is the grief day. So we're having courageous conversations about grief. So, and the workshop is 4 hours. It is some CPD points. It certainly is going to be interactive, and processing and understanding, and how to actually be able to have those conversations to help you, but also so that you can also be supportive to others as well. So I think it's a really beautiful topic, and I'm so pleased that you're going to be able to deliver this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate this. And you know what? I think it also speaks a lot of just being able to trust one another and trust each other, that we can enter these difficult conversations.
Yeah. And I think that, the truth is that when we don't feel safe, I mean, that's the whole point of the courageous conversation, isn't it? It's like we don't feel safe, so we don't have them. But the more skills and steps and things like that that actually support us, and knowing that, things like our own shame, our own vulnerability are what stops us. But when we realize, like you said before, we're not alone, this is actually common and everyone's really feeling the same, it gives us a much better place to be able to share from and provide the compassion for ourselves firstly, but then to others. And I think giving that compassion also gives us more space to be able to respond as opposed to reacting.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We need to give ourselves the same compassion and love and care that we give to people we love. We and the same compassion that we give our patients, or attempt to, at least anyways, we need to turn that towards ourselves. And that's really hard. We're not very good at it. We're really quite hard on ourselves. And unfortunately, our culture doesn't promote that either, nor does, our system and things. So it's that ability to learn, but we can learn it, and it can make an incredible amount of difference when we actually treat ourselves with kindness and compassion and love and generosity that we treat other people.
Yes. And this is included also in the seminar, isn't it? So we're actually going to be doing some self-compassion breaks and how to do it. And there's simple things that we can do on a regular basis. So once again, it's raising the awareness and increasing our skills so that we can actually really look after our own self-care so much better, and hopefully move us out of exhausted into an empowered state, because really I think everyone's really feeling the stats for burnout are huge. And what's interesting about this is that grief is potentially, we call it burnout as a broad umbrella, but there's a few aspects when we break it down that actually can be dealt with in different ways that come under that umbrella.
Absolutely, you're right.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you again so much. And I'm going to share this. I probably have already shared the link below in the comments, but if anyone is interested in joining us, it's a very, very affordable, beautiful seminar, and we encourage everyone to come along and enjoy. We had great feedback from our seminars back in November, and look forward to running a series of these different seminars on courageous conversations about different topics. So thank you again for coming in today, and also what you're going to contribute for us on the 29th of April in Melbourne time, 28th in US time.
Yes, thank you. I look forward to it, and thank you. Thank you for the courage for even showing up. You know what? Even the participants, if you come and you say not a word, that's okay. But the fact that you're showing up and saying, yeah, this is important, that in and of itself is a big step. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you on the 29th, 28th. And I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. This is really important.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, thank you. So yeah, come along, enjoy, and join in, and we would love to see you there. And yeah, it'll be really beautiful. So thank you again, Eileen.
Thank you.